Let me ask you a question, family. Are you a member of the Tiger's Nest subscription team? If the answer is no, well, you are really missing out. First of all, the Tiger's Nest subscription is only $25 a month. And you will receive, listen to this, each and every episode of our nightly radio program, The Tiger's Nest, information, inspiration, and a lot more. In addition to this, advanced subscription will give you a copy of all of our video documentaries, whether they be full length or short, to include A Penny Maker, The Night of the Black Tiger, and the Santa Claus Massacre, just to name a few, all for free. You will also receive every new upcoming video documentary, again, whether it be full length or short, for only $25 per month as a subscriber to the Tiger's Nest. But wait, there is more, much more. All books written by myself, Honorable Priest Isaac, will be given for free to all subscribers, including our upcoming books. All of our subscribers will have free access to all of our special events, lectures, webinars, and conferences that are valued $100 or less. And this access again will be for free. Plus, all of our one-time payment courses, for example, Ancient Astronomy and the Evolution Motivational Business Course, will be for half price to all our Tiger's Nest subscribers. Wow! All of this and more for a subscription of only $25 per month. Now listen to this. You could also get a 6-month or an annual subscription plan, which will be much more economical. Family, this is it. For more information, in fact, to sign up and become a subscriber, visit our website, priestisaacInstitute.com, or just send me an email, priestisaacInstitute@gmail.com, and become a subscriber to the Tiger's Nest. And never miss another episode again, plus much, much, much more. Blessed love. Royal family, are you an entrepreneur? Are you a business owner, employer, employee, manager, owner of the business, or you're just an individual who desires to double your income, motivate your staff, follow up efficiently, or close sales effectively? Well, I have an offer for you. Join us on Thursday, the 29th of February, for our online Evolution Motivational Workshop. Learn how to get yourself, your business partners, and your staff motivated and keep them motivated, guaranteed. Learn how to increase your cash flow no matter what type of business you are involved in, which will obviously raise the standard of living. Facts. To register yourself or your team for free, visit the website priestisaacInstitute.com or email us priestisaacInstitute@gmail.com. Our online Evolution Motivational Workshop. I will see you there.
To where we came from and how we got to be where we are today. Now, in the Caribbean islands, the buying pattern of the Europeans were a bit different. They seem to buy in much larger lots. And so we have a better chance of culture continuity on these islands. And the thing is, because of the size of the island, so small, we're able to communicate with each other by way of the drum and other ways, such as our female used to, when they braid the hair, they used to have messages in those cornrows, and the way how they braid the hair, they will know how to read the signs of where to run away with the safest part and so forth. And so what I'm saying that our people resisted. There was a big resistance movement. Our people, we resisted on the ships, we resisted on the plantation, and we resisted in every way. One thing that I don't like to hear people say when they try to categorize and broad brush the house slave and talk about house slave was this and house slave was that. But what people don't realize, had it not been for the house slave, a lot of information would not have passed down to the slave in the field. And a lot of the house slaves, especially on the Caribbean islands, were the ringleaders of the resistance, because he was able to know and listen in when master friends and plantation come across and had this big dinner. They were able to get news from Europe to know what's going on in France and so forth. And so the buying pattern in the Caribbean island was much more favorable to us because we were able to communicate. Now, something happened to our people, friends, and I want to be specific to our people here in Antigua and Barbuda. We were people who were proud, and we were resisted, and we did not take anything for anybody. Had our resistance movement in Bendels, area called Greencastle, in 1701, our ancestors, I believe they're my great-great-great-grandfathers, grandmothers, because I'm from the area, they resisted. They killed the master on December 25th, Christmas Day, 1701, 103 years before the successful uprising in Haiti in 1804. So if they were successful, Antigua would have been the first country in the world to free themselves from European enslavement. We also had, to give a little story on that, it happened in Greencastle. It was Colonel Martin. He was that's his last name, and they hacked him to death. And his son, Samuel Martin, was actually saved by an African woman, his nanny. He was about 7 years old. She was freed on that basis, and he was taken back. The son, Samuel Martin, was taken to Ireland. He had about 16 sons. One eventually became the governor of South Carolina. So we've seen the history on the migration pattern of these people. Now, 1736, here on Antigua and Barbuda, we had another resistance. You have a king court. Had that been successful, it still would have been a number of years, decades before the successful revolution in Haiti. 1736, and we all know what happened. He had planned to blow up Government House, him and Tomboy and Jacko and all the rest of the 88 others in them, and the plot was put off for some reason, and it was discovered, and they were able to capture many of them and kill them, King Court being the leader. And so I'm just showing that our people did not just lie down and take slavery just like that. Now, one thing that our people do not realize, and this is factual, before the European slave trade, our people were colonized, was enslaved by the Arabs. The Arabs came down almost 1,000 years before the European slave trade. The Arabs came down the east coast of Africa, and they were brutal. Not only to our men, who they castrated because they didn't want our men to have sexual relations with their women, they were brutal to our girls and women as well. They raped them, and some of it is still carrying on today in 2024. This kind of slavery is up there in Saudi Arabia. So we have to understand the history of our people and the people who enslaved us before the European slave trade. And so putting that to the table, I'd like now to get to let's talk about what happened before the European slave trade. Friends, we had a great civilization. I prefer to call it high culture, Nile Valley civilization or high culture. And we had empires on the continent. We had the Malian Empire. We had the Songhai Empire with its great universities in Timbuktu and Sankore. We were the first to have universities on the African continent. And to put things in perspective, when the Europeans described us as savages and we had no history and so forth, truth be told, we were the one who civilized the Europeans. And friends, I have a book here. I bought it for $20 back in 1989, almost over 30-something years ago. Could you see the title of this book?
African Presence in Early Europe.
I bought this for $20. This book can be had sometime for almost $1,000 US right now. Now, this is by a brother, Ivan van Sertino. And the fact is, we taught the Europeans hygiene. We went in there after 7-Eleven, almost 1,000 years before, until about 1492. From 7-Eleven to about 1492, we were up there in Europe, in Spain and Portugal, even in England. One of the first governors of England was a black man called Septimus Severus. Septimus, right? And his son. These are African people. He was an African emperor, Septimus Severus. In the year 197 AD to 211, he was the governor of England. And this brother did not even eat the food in England. His food was flown in from North Africa.
You know what? I want to just engage a little bit, because people might think it's craziness you're talking about here. Because this part of the history is not in any book. It's not what is taught to our children when they read European history. As a matter of fact, we are almost led to believe that white people civilized Africa, that when they went to Africa, they were a bunch of savage people, and they're the one that brought organization, religion, and other things to Africa. You're saying here something that is opposite, that it was really Europe that was barbaric. They didn't know nothing about hygiene. They didn't know nothing about protocols. They didn't know nothing about health. And people from Africa, Africans, Moors, came to Europe and civilized Europe. So I just want to be clear that is what we're saying, so people know.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And this is late. This is between the years 711 and 1492. Now, we're all aware of 1492, a young unknown person named Cristobal Colon, known to most as Christopher Columbus, right? But his so-called discovery of the Western world could have been the most insignificant thing that happened in 1492, because in 1492 that's when the different warring faction in Spain, we know about Isabella and Fernandez, or the guy named, and they came together from Castile and other parts, and they kicked out the Africans. They kicked out the Jews as well, after we taught them the science of longitude and latitude, because they were of the opinion if you sail too far off the sea, they will fall off. So they were actually locked up into the Mediterranean. Now, the Chinese were the greatest in terms of knowledge in maritime. They get that in science from the Chinese. And so we, the Africans, taught the Europeans, because we built the first university in Europe long before Oxford and Cambridge. Europeans used to come down from England and France into Granada, into Spain and Portugal to be taught by Africans. And so after we taught them the science of longitude and latitude, they were able to sail across the Mediterranean into Western Africa and became exposed. So, but this is late history, because going back in the period called BCE, when the Egyptians were ruling the world and have civilization undisturbed for over 3,000 years. We had the Greeks who went in there after 325 BCE 332 BCE by Alexander the Greek, and we taught them everything that they knew: mathematics, arts, medicine, literature, everything. And so that is back then. So I'm just bringing up the period where we taught the Europeans. And so people must understand that there was nothing civilized about Europeans going into Africa and killing men, women, and children and enslaving. There's nothing civilized about that. Civility is about love and gentleness and so forth. And so so the whole world is living a lie. We were taught a lie that the Europeans are the one who actually civilized us. But the reality is, and I have the books here to prove, we're the ones who actually civilized the Europeans. The African would rather go without bread than without a soap. I understand. Mm-hmm. So that is a history before slavery. So now, as we continue on that part, Africa before slavery. I tell you, friends, in the annals of all people, we have been privileged to have certain men and women who have been willing to stand in the appreciable distance from the herd in order to speak the truth to their own people and to the world. They have often done that against great obstacles and great adversity. And I was privileged, friends, to have met some of these people. One of them was John Henry Clark, the great master teacher, when I was living in Harlem, in the village of Harlem in the 80s and 90s. And, so I'll be moving at a rapid pace over a vast amount of history, but you can
let's take the time to break, and then we're going to come back and start in some information on the table. What we're going to do, we're going to go maybe till about 1:30, and then we'll try to open the phone lines, take some WhatsApps that are on the WhatsApp board, because we want this to be a dialogue and an interactive session.
Yeah, friends, I will be moving rapidly over a large body of information, the kind of information that if I was a university professor, it would take a whole semester to complete. So I'll be talking about the pre-Columbian presence of the African in the so-called New World. There's enough information to prove that there was Africans on this side of the world in South America and the Caribbean islands, particularly in the West Indies, and parts of South America, early as 500 BCE. I'm talking about before the story of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. People here in the Caribbean, these Caribbean islands, right? Mm-hmm. And the reading of Christopher Columbus' diary will prove, according to his own accounts, that he found Africans in this new world doing business with Indians using minted West African coins. Mm-hmm. That is evidence that we were here. Mm-hmm. Now, when many of the Spanish conquistadors went to the area of South America, known as the Panama Canal, they found small pockets of black people in South America living amongst the Indians. And some of the early work of Carter G. Woodson, just want to show you his book here, friends.
The Miseducation of the Negro. This is a very, very big book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have this book for a number of years, and people may want to know, you know all them things, right? This book was printed in 1933, and it's very important for our people to learn to read. Reading is so sweet, right? Sometimes you don't even want to put down the book. So I'm just saying, this brother, he did some work on the African presence in this side of the world before Columbus came. Now, another man, he's a white man, could not be any whiter than anybody. He was of the Polish extract. His name was Leo Wiener, and he did a 3-volume work and on the same subject. And he had a book called Africa and the Discovery of America. Professor Wiener was not an African, like I said, right? And he was born in Bialystok, Russian Empire in 1882. So far back this information is, he was an American historian, a linguist, and he was also a professor. Wiener lectured on Slavic culture in Harvard University, and he became the first American professor of Slavic literature. He also was one of many, he published many books. Africa and the Discovery of America, 3 volumes in 1922. And he died in 1939 in Massachusetts. So I'm just giving the background to show it's not just African people who are writing because they want us to feel good. And like I said, and his son is the great mathematical genius Norbert Wiener, who graduated from high school at the age 11 and from Cornell University in 1911 at the age 17. So I'm just giving the background of my information. So anybody have any issue with me, they can take it up with these people. So, and he said that the African could have preceded the Indian in this part of the world, and many of what we thought was Indian culture could have well been African culture. That was back in 1922. Now, 102 years later, 2024, we know that it is now factual that our people were here in this part of the world before the Indians. The Indians are actually from these Asian people who came across the Bering Straits into what is now called North America and South America. So, I'm just letting all people know.
And again, not to interrupt the flow there, but, if you're hearing this for the first time, Ewart, you might actually want to challenge and think that this information you're putting here might be crazy. So I'm glad you have cited some of the sources that people can go to and look. But the truth is that the technologies that the people in Europe utilized to come to the Caribbean to quote unquote discover it had already been mastered by the Africans long before. But that story does not get told anywhere. We cannot defend a history or even believe a history of which we do not know. And I think that is the biggest piece for me, why I like to engage and why I spend so much time, including going to the continent, so that you can get your story from a different source.
Yes.
Because what we get in our classrooms, in our books, via our media in the West, is heavily filtered, and some might even suggest corrupt.
It is.
In terms of what the history is. So I think it's critical for us to share what you're sharing with people. Let's continue.
And before the good brother continues, I think that point was very important. The point that was made as it relates to the Indians in the West and where they got their civilization from, that Brother Ewart Isaac was making there. And the Indians in the West as such is really the Mayans and the Incas, etc. Something that I'm sure most of the audience well familiar with as it relates to, the Black presence in early Mesoamerica and the Olmec people, the Shite people, etc. But it's just interesting as it mentions Indian. Many ones consider that the ancient African tradition known as Rastafari somewhat was borrowed from an Indian tradition, for example, the chalice and the clay pot utilization, even the locks that the Rastaman carried. Many ones consider all of these things, was even the vegan eating, all of these things borrowed from the Indians, the Hindus, the Sikhs, one that came here as indentured servants. But in the same way, that can be disproved as it relates to the presence of Black in early America. It can be disproven, as we have already done such, that all of these traditions were African. The vegan eating, we didn't borrow that from anyone. We taught the world that. The locks, we could show you many different glyphs of us even preparing the locks upon the head. The ancient chalwa, the pipe, all of these things can be seen on the same walls and the same ancient dynastic period that our good brother Ewart Isaac is speaking about. Very good. So we're going to continue. Obviously, this is a rebroadcast, Radio Anu International, and we're going to continue after this very important word for all parents and, of course, all children. Blessed love to all our international homeschool scholars and all who desire to be a part of this wonderful program.
We are having a massive international homeschool enrollment party on Sunday the 17th of March from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Caribbean time.
We will have special guests, live activities, free gifts for all who enroll, and the free education package for all who register.
To register for free, visit our website at priestisaacinstitute.com or send us an email at priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com. The International Homeschool Enrollment Party. See you there.
And I don't think, family, that I have to definitely encourage you, as it says, to register for free. Yes, we may be saying, well, you know, that's still a time away from now, but trust me, the earlier the better. And remember, it is a full free activity. And remember, we have different gifts that we have to offer specifically just for registering alone. You're going to get free gifts. And for those who will be enrolling, also, we have special gifts for you. And the whole activity, that whole day's activity, entertaining and yet edifying, beautiful activity set aside for the young ones. Believe me, it's going to be a joy, absolutely free. Visit the website and register.
Have you heard of ARCHAEOASTRONOMY? I am the Honorable Priest Isaac, and I am certified in the field of ARCHAEOASTRONOMY. Do you want to learn ARCHAEOASTRONOMY? Well, book your ticket today and join me in the Caribbean in the island of Antigua for 9 days and nights, 7 of which will be in the classroom studying and in the field researching on Green Castle Hill, Mount Anu, the Stonehenge of the Caribbean. This is a studycation. You will visit the beach, experience the Rastafari camps, yoga, vegan food, and much more. For more information, visit priestisaacinstitute.com or email us at priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com.
Well, like I said to you before, friends, I would like to take this discussion from a spiritual perspective as well, because we here in this part of the world, we are so corrupted, we were so miseducated, we were so much indoctrinated by European historiography. And so it is important that we unlearn many of the things that we were being taught that is truth and for unreal. Now, I love to travel. And one of the things, you know, I've been to so many cities and places in Europe. And, you know, some people criticize me, oh, yeah, I talk about Africa, years ago, Europe. But John Henry Clark said, he was told as a youth that we have no history when he was going to school. He met a Puerto Rican, Arthur Schoenberg, or Turi Schoenberg, who went to New York in 1917. The Schoenberg Center is up there in Harlem. The first exhibition I ever been to was the Haitian exhibition in 1984, 85 at the Schoenberg Center. And Arthur Schoenberg told John Henry Clark, he said, John, if you want to know the history of your people, you have to learn the history of the people who enslave and colonize your people. And so I set out to understand this philosophy and the thinking of European people. Why would they want to do that to another people? And I'm not making excuses for the Europeans, but I understand why they did it, friends. These people were living in what Dr. Clark described as an ice box. You have only a few months of winter, of summer, and they were hungry.
To grow food.
There were people hungry, like in the 1300s, there were people hungry, they were land poor, and they were, like I said, people poor and land poor as well. They didn't have much to grow food. And so when you are starving and you come into an area where you see an abundance of food, it is like sometimes I say, boy, they're not accustomed to not know, they're not, that's why I see they go on so raving. People talk about our people, right? So you have to understand the history of the people, why they behave like that. So when they came into Africa and they saw so much food and so much, like civilization, Now, they could have negotiated with the Africans and have a partnership, but because of their spirit of fighting each other for everything, they rather fight against the Africans and take all of it. Mm-hmm. And so we have to understand the history of the people who educated us, who enslaved us. But Africans, we have a spiritual connection with the Most High. And our way of thinking, like I said, we did not have any religion per se, because religion is man-made. And that is why I have so much confusion between the Methodists and the Catholics and the Adventists and all of these.
I'm going to ask you to pause and rewind there, because that's a pivotal point.
Yes.
That religion is man-made.
It's man-made.
So God, even the God of the Christian religion, is not a God of religion.
No.
He's a God of people. Even the Bible that Christians read with the 66 book canon is not a book of religion. That is a book that indeed was no Christianity in it. That book, Christianity, is a thing that Jesus Christ was not a Christian.
No,
he was a Jew.
He was a Jew.
His religion was one of Judaism. Right? And so you explain that. So the point that you're making here, I think, is a pivotal point, that every religion that exists today is made of man. And we oftentimes also get confused between religions and denominations, right? So within the religions, there are many denominations. For us on this side of the world, we mostly have Christian denominations that come down through the Protestant side of that chart, but you see Islam also in the mix. So it's critical that people understand that every religion is a business, is an institution that is set up to perpetuate itself. That is why they exist.
I'm so happy you said that, Franz, because you make my presentation much easier. Because, you know, when you speak with someone who has some knowledge of what you're talking about, it makes your presentation much easier. Now, like I said before, all man-made, all salvation-oriented religions have their origin in Africa. Mm-hmm. The first immaculate conception, the story is an African. It wasn't about Jesus. Is the latest of 16 crucified saviors, all who was born on the 25th of December, all who have died and went to heaven, all who spent 3 days in the grave, and Jesus is the last of the 16. I have the book, the 16 crucified saviors. And so we have to understand that the Africans, they have a spiritual connection with the Creator. And the religion that we have here in this part of the world called Christianity was not really created. The concept, let me just be clear, the concept that goes into the making of the religion is African. However, the European made such a mess of it that he used it in such a way to perpetuate his philosophy and to have himself over every other people in the world. And so the origin of that, I have the notes of the four major economical councils from 325 AD by Constantine. I've been to Europe. I've been to Rome. I've been to the Colosseum, and just outside the Colosseum, I didn't want to pay to go in there. I went with a group. I didn't want to pay to go in, so I stayed outside. And I have this big arch, and you see all the drawings there with Constantine when he won his battle, and it was said that he has this vision that the sun will tell and he was converted to Christianity. But these guys, they did not convert to Christianity for spiritual reasons. It was for political reasons why the Catholic Church got involved with Christianity. Christianity was in Ethiopia before the Romans took over.
Correct.
So the concept that
as a matter of fact, Romans were late adopters to the concept of what we now know as Christianity.
Exactly.
It is proposed that Mark, the evangelist, Apostle Mark carried that to North Africa, and it moved from North Africa throughout. But it is critical because we believe that it's European come up with this idea, and white people and so on. But if you go into the Ethiopian and the Orthodox Christians, they can trace their Christianity back to nearly the 1st century, right?
Even before the 1st century, because you had a Coptic church in Egypt who were practicing this thing. And so it's very, very critical. There were 4 major economical councils. The first one was 325 AD.
And just so that people listening understand, the ecumenical councils are the councils where the people who are in religion meet to decide what's going to happen, right? It's critical that you understand that what we see is just the byproduct of somebody sitting down in a meeting and discussing what should be theology.
Not only somebody, but the first economical council, there was 318 bishops because there was confusion. And so Constantine, in his wisdom, he decided, hey, gotta quell this confusion, like our council, and we're going to decide who Jesus really was. And anybody who wanted to doubt me, please go and read it for yourself. The first economical council, 325 AD. They had 2 other councils before that, the Council of Ephesus, right? And the last major council was 451 AD, called the Council of Chalcedon. Please, I ask somebody, please look it up. Don't take my word. The Council of Chalcedon, Chalcedon, 451 AD. And that is when they decided what Jesus is going to be. That is when they decided if he's going to be human or part deity or part, and so they made a decision. And I read the notes for myself. It says that we are now going to decide for all who want to believe, and this is what is going to be. And anybody who write down anything or teach anything or even think anything different, you shall be anatomized. I don't know what the word anatomized means, so I went to look it up. It means you shall be cursed.
Right.
And so this is what these guys put together, these bishops put together, and this is what was handed down to us.
And that is why, and many people don't understand, because a lot of light is not, even within the theological schools that teach us. That is why when people like Martin Luther came around and start to challenge now hundreds of years of established theology to create what we now know as the Protestant churches, that they had to crucify him.
He had to run. He had to run
Had
his
to
life.
crucify and they end up killing him.
And,
right?
well, the thing is, friends, he actually wrote something called a 95 thesis.
The thesis, yes.
On the door of the church in Cologne, Germany.
And put it up, post it up there.
And say, hey, are you the truthfulness?
Yeah.
He did not actually want to start a new religion.
No.
He was a devout Catholic.
He was.
But he said, man, you have to go back to the original. And so when the first Bible was printed in around 1455 or so, the first book that they printed, and this guy called, it was in Germany, called, oh gosh, I forgot his name. But anyway, they printed the first Bible. And the Gutenberg Bible, it was the first book that was printed in that time. And so we have to understand, even the Bible, that #1 bestseller book in the world today,
up to today,
the King James version of the Bible, the King plainly tell us this is his version. If you open the book, or before you open the book, I was a Christian since I was 16. So I've been to many different churches. My father was an Adventist. I had to go to Adventist when I lived in New York. In Antigua, I used to go to Anglican. I worked for confirmation for 2 or 3 years up there in big church. And then I was a Christian at another church called the Church of Christ. So I know the whole history of the church. And the thing is that King James, in 1611, when he got these scholars from Cambridge and Oxford and so forth, and it was now being said that it was Francis Bacon who was the actually brainchild behind the King James Version of the Bible. And the king plainly tells us this is his version. So it means there are other versions that predated his version. You had the Great Bible, which was printed in the time of King Henry VIII. You have the Bishop's Bible. You had the Geneva Bible. Now, the Geneva Bible is very interesting because it was illegal for anybody to convert or translate the Bible into English. So these Englishmen had to go to Geneva, Switzerland to create a Bible. So when King James came to be King James VI of Scotland and King James I of England in 1603, they did not like the Geneva Bible. So that's why he came up with the idea of his version of the King James Version. And we have to understand, even in the Gospels, it tells us, every book tells us, this is the Gospel, not according to Jesus, not according to God, but this is the Gospel according to somebody named Mark, somebody named John, somebody named Matthew, and somebody. So these people, they won't lie to us in terms of the origin, but it's so thing that they're so tricky. Everything is in plain sight, and we have to question. And so, my brother, I just want to let our people know that we have a great history before slavery, and my purpose for doing this, even that one child could understand. We have a great history before slavery, because I didn't want to be identified not named black when I was growing up, because of what I learned and heard about. I was afraid, man. And so I'm hoping that some child, this is sports week, midterm, who might be listening, that I may, inspire them to know that they don't have to feel ashamed of being a black or called black or African, because we have a great history before slavery.
Well, Ewart, my hope is that yourself, people like Paddy Simon, people like Priest Isaac and others who believe what you're saying there, will have the opportunity very soon to teach our children, because the problem that we're having is that no one is teaching our children what you are saying. This information that you are sharing here is some people for the first time as adults that they are hearing it. And unless we present the counter narrative, the other story, and let people know, listen, it's kings and queens you come from, not slave. That is just a small part of your history. But the people and them all over the world, Europe, America, try to pivot our history from a place where we're the weakest.
Well, friends, let me tell you, I am a truck driver. And so I have to make a knowledge when it comes to anything using my truck. Let's say I was bringing a 40-foot container from Deepwater Harbor, loaded with files and cabinets. From the back of the container to the door, when you open the door, right, you'd have history of African people full up the most of the container. It's only a small part of the container with a heavy in the part of slavery. Now, another analogy I would like to use. Let's say you have a book of 1,000 pages. Say from page 1 to page 90 would have been the history of African people and all our achievements before the European slave trade. And maybe about from page 99 to maybe 95 would be a small section of the history, the African being enslaved. And so we have to get out the narrative that before we were colonized by the Europeans, we had a great history of achievement 3,000 years before anybody interfered with us.
And that is something that we don't spend any time talking. Let's open the phone lines. And on the WhatsApp board, we're going to engage you because, listen, the time isn't just not here to do justice to this kind of discussion. What I'm going to do is ask you to think about coming back at another time and continuing the dialogue, right? And it's not so easy to cut up this history and say, well, this is the history of religion, this is the history of slavery, this is the history of education, because it's all intertwined and affects us. For example, you cannot discuss African religion and don't discuss African economics, because the two are intertwined. But let's take the callers. Callers, good afternoon and welcome to Voice of the People.
What up again, my beloved brothers, and to Brother Isaac. Brother Isaac, let me ask you 2 questions. You used to be at the UAM every Wednesday night, or Saturdays up at Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark and Cable and Foundation?
Yes, I used to live in Harlem, 139th Street, just walking distance from the City University.
Okay.
And walking distance from Convent Avenue. So,
right.
and I was in construction. So, and when it comes the month of December, I never work again until around March. I have about 3 months rent money put up, because that's when I go into learning. So I used to go to the college and to Convent Avenue. I wasn't officially enrolled in any university or college, let me make that straight. I just used to go to listen to the lectures on weekends. When Dr. Ben, first time I ever seen Dr. Ben, I met Dr. Clark at his house, and I met Dr. Ivan Van Sertima at Reverend Daughtry's Church in Brooklyn, and I met another one over there in the Slave Theater in Brooklyn. So I was all over.
Simmons too, from St. Croix, so
Simmons and Dr. Clark had a great discussion some years ago.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to, I never realized I was actually in school. In those days, I was in my 20s, not working good in construction. I get laid off, and so I used to spend my time going to these universities and these churches where these great scholars used to be.
All right, let's have another call there. Yeah, take the call. Caller, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Frank de Freitas.
Hey, afternoon, Paddy.
And good afternoon, Professor Ewart Isaac.
My brother.
Yeah, let me boast this afternoon for say, me make a prophecy with you.
Yes, you did.
4 years ago, when you started, and when you come, and man, they even want to spend 2 minutes in your teachings. I said to Dave, give Ewart 2-3 years, and when Ewart done, he could just yam off their head. And boss, let me tell you, you're like the great French wine. You're mellowing, man. I am so proud of you, my brother. And as you say, you see this history that we try to bring forth to our people. You are the one who being vilified by the people because them no know. Them no know. But you keep pumping them. You had the book. Go and study the book. And study me. And study the messenger. Study the message. And you now make it known. The people now know. And you dance and chop it enough. Are the people who dance and chop it who just call you down, are them friends have to tell, no, make the boy alone. You chat right. Why me so proud of you are? I'm so proud of you.
Remember you just cuss when I first met you, Tell the right book.
Brother, I'm so proud of you that it ain't funny, man. It ain't funny. Just keep up the good works, man.
Thank you.
Keep up the good works, brother.
All right. We have another caller. Caller, good afternoon and welcome to Voice of the People.
Hey, greetings, Paul and Franz and Mr. Isaac.
Good afternoon.
Love guidance. Now, I have my issue. And my issue is, why is it that it must be, they keep saying God, they keep being as His Majesty and all that. Why it cannot be like a woman? Why you always have to be in a form of a man? That's my thing. And when you look on all the religion in them, and that's why the black man would say there's no God. When the black man said that, they think it and take it funny. Now, when they go to Africa, they want to know, where's your God? The black man have to show them, look, God is in the bird, the cheese, everything. The universe, that's the God. So then now, when they talk about man, you see some things happen to the woman and them, right inside the same Bible. When I look up to the woman and his father, son, they say Father, Son, and Holy Ghost with his mother, father. I used to want to put Father first and the Son, however it is. I'm just saying, can you elaborate why it must be a man and not a woman, please?
Well, a plenty time you can take for do that, caller. As a matter of fact, you can have to do a whole study of the African religions and look upon the Yoruba system that are relatively, I guess, still existing, African spirituality concept, for even bring out the power and the strength of the woman, right? But there are many references that exist.
But what I'll say in short, is that just a short thing. In short, is that somebody gave a masculine gender to God. Somebody did that, and so the Africans did not do that. They had the man and the woman was equal, and just